As promised, we have finally more Stephen book reading. The last one was like 2 months ago. But I haven't had my phone for a bit because I lent it out, so now it's time for more Stephen. More Stephen. So nice outside. I should go sit out in the grass and read this. But I won't. Perhaps there were pieces to my puzzle locked within this book as well. My mind was racing with new ideas, digesting what I had just read. When we finally got to the bookstore, I found it hard to put the Bible down so we could go inside. My father didn't seem to care. We sat parked for 5 minutes while he listened to the last part of his talk radio program, and I tried my best to block it out. We got out of the car together and headed inside, quiet, each buried in our own heads. I examined him as he marched quietly to the front door and opened it for me. He was such a dignified man, supposedly rational. And yet he found it so easy to believe my radical story, a fantastic story, which seemed so impossible. As I crossed the threshold of the door, an odd feeling overtook me. I scanned the room quite completely in only a few seconds. Suddenly, another one of the light beings from the field appeared before me. "Joseph, I see another one of those things from the field," I informed him quietly. "Which one? One of the black ones or one of the shiny ones?" "One of the light elves," I offered. "So is that what we are calling those guys?" I looked at him with squinty eyes to judge his level of sarcasm. "I'm serious. I'm just curious. I want to know. If we're going to be talking about these things, I need to know what to call them," he whispered. I turned my back to him. "Light elves it is." He silently sighed to himself. I concentrated on the little man before me. The faint outlines of a thing left a lot to the imagination, but it looked about 3.5 feet tall, and it seemed to have some kind of clothing on. The little light elf seemed to be trying to get my attention and was waving his arms at me frantically. I leaned down to it and whispered what I imagined was his ear. "I'll follow you." The little thing darted off. A jet of lightning dust scattered through the store. The light creature ran up to different shelves and pointed to different volumes. Literature meant especially for me. I couldn't see the titles from so far away, and I didn't want to miss out on the chance to understand whatever this light elf wanted to reveal to me. I knew that these tomes must hold special information. If this extra-dimensional being wanted me to read a particular book, I wouldn't let it down. I would fill my head with all the knowledge it wanted me to collect, and I would not let its tutorial go unacknowledged. Perhaps my prayers for truth were finally being answered. I chased after it, my cane clacking against the tile. I yelled for my father to follow. I assume he was embarrassed at my odd behavior as his half-crippled son tried his best to run through a crowded area, bashing shins apathetically with his cane as he rushed after an imaginary friend. "Where are you running?" he yelled after me. "These are books he wants me to read. We have to get to them soon." I grabbed every book the light elf pointed to without looking at the titles or authors. This went on for at least a quarter of an hour before my legs started giving out. When I picked up the last book, the small creature dissipated into a miniature bright cloud of glitter, leaving me with the knowledge that he asked me to gather. Okay, he's gone, I told my father. He looked around as if he could see the creature or make out where he had run off to. I smiled at this. We were both holding at least 20 books apiece. Now correct me if I'm wrong, son, but you didn't even look at the title of these. If you have me spend hundreds of dollars on these books, I would like to know that you at least have an interest in the titles. If a light elf wants me to read a book, I'm going to read it, no matter what the subject of it is. There has to be a reason behind it, I argued. When we got to the counter and placed our books down, I was sweaty and sore. There was a sweet old lady behind the counter who checked us out. She went through and scanned every book at a snail's pace. She was quite curious at the collection I had blindly gathered in record time. She had apparently been watching me the entire time. I've never seen you in here before. You seem to have a pretty good idea of where all our books are. Why was this lady giving me the third degree? Bookstores are like a second home to me, I offered. My first home is the record store. I smiled. These are some pretty interesting books you have picked out for yourself. Many of these are on the flagged list. The Communist Manifesto. Wow, it's been a long time since I've seen someone buy that in Columbia, South Carolina. Buddhism, Insight Meditation, the Tao, Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Astronomy and Astrology, Runic Magic, Tribal Medicine, Dream Theory, Famous Psychics, Tarot, Saints, Angels, Ancient Mythology, Egyptian Architecture, History of Roman Politics, Secret Societies, Masonic Conspiracy, Nazi Occult History of World War II, Eugenics, Savants, Gandhi, Coco the Gorilla, Environmental Ethics, Project Venus, Sustainable Living Guides, Botany, Gardening, Advanced Geology, Metaphysics, Mechanical Engineering, Free Energy. Pretty diverse list of authors. George Orwell, Plato, Thomas Paine, Daniel Quinn, Whitley Strieber, Albert Einstein, Thich Nhat Hanh, Edgar Cayce. I had no idea who half of these authors were. She went on and on like that. Yeah, my son has a lot of catching up to do. He's been in the hospital for the last few years due to a very traumatic injury. We came in a few days ago to pick up these books, but we didn't have any money with us at that time. So here we are. Ha! I think we'll pay for this with cash. I don't want this showing up on my credit card bill. Don't want to be on the FBI's list of suspected persons, my father said in a crackling voice between nervous laughter. Sweat trickled down his cheek and he adjusted his shirt collar nervously. The lady did not seem to notice. She went about her business, busily sweeping the books under the infrared scanner. Beep, beep, beep. Before I knew it, our total was into the hundreds. My dad had a somewhat crazy look in his eyes. I felt like I was on top of the world. My spirit guide had just selected a great reading list for me. I was about to have a whole new library. My dad could hardly believe it. Every topic seemed valuable in some respect. Some secret wisdom for me to unlock was hidden within every leather-bound, paperback, and glitzy hardback book. And by the look on my father's face, he knew that as well. He believed. Yeah, I am actually Andrea's boy. My name is Jacob. I missed the last few years of high school because of my illness. So I have to catch up on my reading. These are some of the things I'm interested in, I said to the lady behind the counter who was filling up plastic bag after plastic bag with heavy books. I mainly just wanted to ease my father's tangled nerves. He had gone through a lot in these last few hours. I'm sure his mind was racing. Mine was. And I'm sure he had a lot of questions for me and for my alien savior. Oh, you're Andrea's boy. I've heard a lot about you. I'm glad to see you are doing better. I guess that means you get Cliff's discount. That's good for you. Today you'll save a lot of money. But I like most of these books. You have an open mind like me. Lots of kids your age have wide open minds, and if you ask me, that is just a beautiful thing. Your total is $339, Mr. Shepard. I'd forgotten how pleasant most Southern people were, especially the older ladies. My father paid and we gathered our bags and got into the truck. When we closed the doors, my father looked around to see if anybody was watching us. Then he stared at me for what seemed like forever, his eyes digesting the many hidden expressions locked inside my bearded face. That was amazing. You have everything here from Atlantis to Zeta Reticuli. This is unbelievable. Philosophy, art history, science, but most of it is so esoteric, spiritual, Gnostic, occult. More than a little taboo in these parts. All of these books are so relevant, Jacob. You could build a whole new society with the information you have here. But if I'm to believe some spiritual person, some other dimensional being that only you can see, helped you pick out these books, then I'm afraid these aliens, or whatever they are liberals. Communism? Really? Look at this one. He held up a book written by an obscure author. Tribal Life. Why the Death of Capitalism is Our Last Chance to Find Salvation. What the hell is that? What the hell is this all about? My father was obviously irritated. I didn't know why. I didn't even pick the books out. I didn't read the titles. I just grabbed them as best I could. What is that supposed to mean? I don't know why I picked these books. But maybe there is something about communism that is worth knowing. I guess I will read the book and let you know. Karl Marx had a great beard. I admired his portrait on the front of the book. Just remember, these aren't my opinions. At least not yet. Well, I just do not want you to grow up to be a radical leftist. You didn't even pick out a single Ayn Rand novel. I don't want you joining some liberal union or moving to New York and becoming a Yankee. You're a strong boy, a strong shepherd, just like me. A hardy Southern boy. But if some higher power wants you to read these books, then I want to know exactly what you get from each one of these, okay? You need to read every one of them carefully, and hopefully, whatever these light elves want you to know will be revealed to you. I sure am going out on a limb for you, but let's keep all this a secret from Andrea. She doesn't need to know that you're seeing things, okay? Okay, Joseph, sounds good to me. Thank you for buying all those books for me. I'll pay you back after I get my check cashed. Oh, it's no problem, son. You don't have to pay me back. You deserve something. I have missed a few birthdays and you have a big one right around the corner. And I'm glad you're just buying books instead of movies, CDs, cigarettes, or booze like other people your age. You know what you should buy, though? A computer. You can get all sorts of information off the internet. It's way better than any encyclopedia I know of, and you definitely have the cash for it. My father looked at me with his glassy sky blue eyes. I wasn't familiar with this internet thing. It was only just getting off the ground whenever I was put in the hospital, and Lord knows my trailer never had a computer. I'm very proud of you, Jacob. I think Mr. Casey was right. You will be a great man. He knew it. I know it. And I think that you are coming to realize it too. He tousled my hair with his soft palm like he had done when I was a boy. In that one moment, I was profoundly happy. I flipped open my Bible and started reading again. After a while, I let out a little chuckle. This whole faith seems pretty screwy to me, I told my father. You're telling me. Which piece exactly are you referring to? Well, Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, guided by a force in the sky, a shining cloud during the day and a ball of fire at night. Well, the only source of light people had at that time was fire, so it's reasonable to assume that if they saw a light in the sky, they would call it a ball of fire. And angels were always depicted with wings. Maybe that's figurative. Maybe that's the only way they know how to explain how they flew. I wouldn't doubt if they were actually seeing some type of aircraft. Perhaps from a different planet, or perhaps from a different dimension, I explained. Do you think they had a close encounter? I shrugged. Well, son, I think the Bible is just a story written by a primitive society, trying to rationalize things on Earth that they couldn't explain. Or things they saw in the sky, for that matter. I've often thought that maybe humans were a genetic experiment performed by some ancient alien civilization. He looked embarrassed of himself, but he went on. It would explain why anthropologists were unable to find the missing link in human evolution. But please don't tell Andrea. She would call me crazy. Well, where are these beings? What? Well, where are these beings now, if they were so crucial in humanity's early development? I couldn't get over this hurdle in my rational mind. Well, maybe after the wheels got turning and our first society took root, they just sat back and watched what happened. As we transformed from mere beasts into the rulers of Earth that we are today. Maybe they just wanted to let us make our own fate, our own decisions, find our own answers. But you're more qualified to answer that question than I am. I've never seen them before. You have. I'm sure many people share your experiences, who knows, maybe even your visions, but I have a feeling we're not alone out there. Thank you for being so good about all this, Joseph, I said to him as we took the exit that took us back to my father's quaint little cottage home. I never in a million years would have thought your mind would be so flexible. I imagine we'll grow into great friends while I'm here. I'll need somebody to talk to. I have a lot of information to take in, and I'll need a sounding board. Are you up for the challenge? Things have been pretty weird for me. I don't want to seem like I'm going crazy. I nervously stroked my beard and rubbed my sore knee, the medical screws still stuck halfway out of the bone. The surgeons did a shoddy job. I massaged the pain away. My father took my hand in a very serious, almost forceful way. A way I had not known since Mr. Riley. My father shook my hand hard, his grip like the eagle's he tends. I'm not going to leave you again. I will trust anything you have to say to me. You're my first son. You might forget that you are all the blood family I have left. I'm all you have, and I don't intend to let you down. Not again. I'm going to be here for you. Do you hear me? My father demanded, his tone kind and tough, a strong love behind his words that I had never heard from him before. I was thankful for this. A son needs his father, and I'd never had one. The devil came to teach me the facts of life, He left this world, and my lesson was learned.